Awesome. All right. Yay. I am so excited that you're able to join us, Tao, for the Youth Leadership Summit in this beautiful way that we're able to connect. For those of you who don't know Tao, he is a master of the stage and humor and just community in the way that it blends in such a really brilliant space that he offers through film and video and just his energy in space. And so it's so excited to have you here and to be a part of this space, Tao. It's funny, we're almost 8 months to the day we were going to be on stage sharing this to a live audience and talking about youth leadership and community engagement. And one of the things that I find so fascinating is how people have been able to pivot through a lot of struggle and a lot of change. And the first question that I really want to offer and invite into this space is, what has emerged for you since the pandemic in ways in which you now think about leadership and care and just taking time through a lot of change?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. Thanks for the lovely introduction. It's really nice to continue the conversation and be here, like you said, 8 months later, as was originally planned. And yes, a lot has changed, and there has been a lot of adaptation in just life and our plans and our goals and our health and well-being. And so, yeah, that's a great question, is like, how have we adapted, and how has that change been for me? I think the first thing that I've noticed through it was probably family, was the immediate change of focus. It was like, okay, traveling's off the table, which was kind of journey I was taking for a little while. It's just like branching out, trying new places, meeting new people. And then in what COVID did was just shut that whole world into a really small place in our small community. And then even smaller was our household. And so all of a sudden it became really important just to connect with family, both my parents, my sister, my larger family, as well as my grandparents. As that's been changing, it's been an interesting time with my grandpa's health really deteriorating quickly. And then it became a challenge of okay, how do we connect with the people that matters to us most, but also keeping them safe at the same time. And I think through that, there's become a lot of leadership, because now everyone is having discussions about what's our plan, what's our strategy here, how are we going to meet our requirements of human connection without actually being able to make physical contact or be in the same house. And so, yeah, as a family member, as a son and a brother, and a partner, it's a good position to be in to figure out how to make sure everyone is feeling okay about it, or feeling like they just have enough of that interaction. And it's hard sometimes, even though it's family. It's still really hard, because you're trying to take in their needs as well as your own, and they don't always overlap. And it's constantly changing as well. So that's been probably the biggest adaptation, is family. Yeah.
Absolutely. And within that too, just really referencing that overlapping of, people having their needs, you having your own, and it's constantly changing. The updates are constantly, feeding something new. And within that as well, it's how are you able to sustain a personal layer of care and leadership when those two conflicting spaces of the needs of someone else and your own needs can sometimes conflict. And what advice would you share with someone who's needing to work through some of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just take as many breaths as you can. One good thing about the pandemic right now is there's probably usually not a rush. We do have quite a bit of time on our hands. Maybe that situation is different for other people, but I've noticed for sure that with a good night's sleep on it, I'll usually feel quite different about maybe what I thought my needs were versus what they really were. So that can also change on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, just taking time, just like, don't feel like you have to make that decision right at that moment, and just allowing yourself to sleep on it or write on it or whatever it is that helps you process through it. Yeah.
With that as well, has there been anything that you've particularly done either creatively or just internally or just sort of in the day-to-day moments that you've taken for yourself to process through things, and to also recognize too, like, one of the things that I'm also working through is, you know, how often I'm reminding myself to ground and to just sort of stay centered as much as possible. But often I think that I forget about, like, you know, what was the best thing that happened this week? You know, what was something that was also really rad in the midst of all this, you know, unknown. And so, yeah, I guess like a question coming out of that space too is, you know, how do you also balance, you know, some of those spaces that feel really great and that you also want to cherish, and to ask people, like, you know, what else is, like, what was the, actually, let's just have this as a question. What was the one of the best moments of your week?
Thank you. Yeah, this week was kind of a funny one for me with ups and downs. I've started a new job up here in Smithers, so I've been working past couple of weeks. I'm the new coffee roaster in town. So I've just been learning lots about how to roast coffee, and I don't drink coffee, so it's all new to me. But
smells like not decaf. We're good. Like,
yeah, hitting the spot.
yeah.
So that's been pretty full on, and it's definitely like been pretty exhausting. But I think probably the best part of my week that really helped break it up was just going to the pool with my partner, and we had a really nice time together in the hot tub, which felt really good. And then also just like in the pool, it was like family swim day. So it wasn't like lanes or anything. So all the toys were in the pool. And it was just like fun to just like relax and like throw the pool balls around, and just like totally took the stress off. So that is like a nice way out of it. Was like the pool was like still like a connection to just like the community. I don't know if everyone has access to a pool right now, but if you do, it's worth it to go and just like be in a little community hub again that kind of still feels like connected. Yeah, that felt good.
I remember from our previous chats and just knowing you as a person in life and in different ways, one of the things that really stood out to me from one of those chats, you were talking around choices, and you were talking around the pressure that youth have to make a choice, to make a life plan right now, and you have to follow it, and it's got to be this right thing, either right out of high school, right out of university. You left university, now you got to figure out, and there was this sense of urgency that you really helped and spoke into as a way to kind of reframe what that looks like. And I'm wondering if you could share a bit more of that here in this space as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting bringing back those thoughts that have like been discussed throughout the whole year. So I'm sure my own thoughts have changed again about it since then. But yeah, generally I feel like a thing I've experienced in my own life and have discussed with my parents and other peers from classes and friends my age, friends older and younger, is this time in life coming out of school, like our primary school, going through elementary to high school, and that's your whole life up until that point is pretty much all you can remember has been school. And for me, that looked a little different. I was homeschooled for the last 4 or 5 years of schooling, and then after I graduated, I just left it at that, and I still have. I haven't returned back to any university or college post-secondary, and that's had its ups and downs, but it's just been still a whole lot of learning, as I would expect you would get out of post-secondary as well. And yeah, one of those things that I've learned was that there has been no rush, and I don't think I've ever felt that I'm losing time through this. I don't feel like I'm losing that opportunity to go back to post-secondary, which is a really nice thing to know, is that it's actually always going to be there for when the time is right. So just like I said earlier, just giving yourself that time to take a few deep breaths, it's like the same thing right now. It's just like, I'm just letting myself take a few deep breaths before I really decide on what it is that I want to dive into and explore and learn more about. And so far, not having gone to school has given me the opportunity to just like sample little bits and pieces, which has been really nice and positive. It's just like, can this be an interest to me? Can this be a passion? You know, I don't have to decide right now because, you know, there's nothing saying I have to carry through the whole other 4 years of schooling or whatever. But I can just see if I like farming, and then I try that for a bit. And then it's like, no, I'm actually pretty terrified of chickens. I don't think I want to do that. Yeah, right? No chickens. And then it's just like, yeah, you continue from there. And generally, like, while you're in one phase or experience, whether that's farming or computer graphics or whatever it is you're doing, something might pop up randomly, completely unexpected while you're there. And that just might take you to the next thing. And it's just like saying yes to those things is great, but don't feel like you have to say yes to the whole thing. You know, didn't do farming, so I would do that for the rest of my life and pass that on to generation. It was for a summer, and that was it. So it's okay. And that's like, there's no time wasted there. That was a valuable experience. Even in the moment, if I like totally hated it and like was tired and like broken down, I still look back on it with fond memories, and I'm glad that I did it because there was so much to take away from it. So don't feel the urgency because you're already there. I feel like you're already on that path. You're already learning. You're already living some kind of experience, whether it's positive or negative. That's okay. Just like keep going. Yeah, because yeah, you're getting there every day. Like, it's okay. Like, no one's timing you. You know, it's just everyone goes at a different pace. So don't expect yourself to go at the pace that your friends are going at or that your parents went at. Like, just take a deep breath. Yeah.
I think that's so relatable and just so real of that comparison, right? Especially I find for me with my parents and being like, you know, when they were my age, they were this, and this, had 3 kids, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I love talking with people. I don't think I like talking with kids. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I'm not able to live that version of me authentically if I chose that life, right? And I think that you know, one of the things as well is looking at, you know, how are we able to also slow down, to take those breaths, and to realize that, like, you know, one of the things I'm interested in recently is looking at comparison in a way where it's like, you know, we have goals and we have like these healthy ways of like, oh, that's awesome. Like someone, you know, wrote a book and that's great. And like, I would love to also do that. Or I would, you know, it's the healthy comparison in that too. And I'm wondering if there's a moment or an experience in your life where you were inspired by someone as in a healthy comparison way, whether it was a peer or someone in community that really kind of allowed you to step into yourself even more from what they were doing. If there's
Yeah, one thing comes to mind right away, like off the bat, is my best friend Peter inspired me about 5 years ago when he was 16 and I was 15. And him and I were good friends at the time. Like, we knew each other, we'd hung out a few times, but it was the beginning of our friendship, we could say. And he had actually just left to Europe for, I think, almost a whole year. And half of that year, he was backpacking across Spain by himself at the age of 16. And I was just like, what the heck are you doing, man? Like, that's crazy. I can't believe it. And over time, we just connected over the phone through his trip. Like, he would call me on Facebook Messenger when he was at a hostel or something and catch me up on the people he's met or the days that he had. And we would be on the phone for hours. And my jaw would just be like hanging the whole time, hearing his stories and how real they were and how like, I just couldn't imagine any of it, but it all sounded so like incredible and just like fun and challenging. And like, God, it was just like, boom, that's it. Like, that's what I want to be doing. And so on the phone on one of our conversations, I was like, let's do a trip together. Let's do something. And he's like, yeah, okay. But I don't want to walk anymore. He was like tired of walking at that point. So he's like, let's be faster. Let's go on bikes. And that was what started our first bike trip. And that was my first bike trip as well. We biked around British Columbia over like our summer holidays between grade 11 and 12, I think. And that was that was like a comparison that was pretty healthy, because he was a peer, he was my friend, and I saw what he was doing and I thought I could do that as well. If he's doing that, we're the same age, we're close, we come from the same town, we got a lot in common. I want to be doing that as well. And then he motivated me, he supported me, and together we made it possible. And then that trip spiraled so much more out of life as well. So yeah, definitely my good buddy, Peter. He's an inspiration.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so rad to not only hear that story, but also hear that friendship. I think that it's just like a really beautiful thing, to really honor and hold. So thank you for sharing that, and that person in this space too. That's really, really sweet. Like listening to that too, and just the way that you also spoke was this, this tone that was full of just like excitement and curiosity, and just like you had to step into it. And I'm sure there were moments where you're like, I want to step back out of it, or it was just like really crazy. But how did that bike trip around British Columbia with Peter, that first kind of experience, really help propel you in the self-confidence to take risks and to be vulnerable and to open up yourself to things that you once thought like, I don't know, maybe this isn't for me, but like this, but this is, this is actually happening.
Yeah. I think that trip was, well, for one, the first thing I'd done away from home without my parents. So that was significant in itself. Just anything you do for the first time kind of away from home can be quite hard, challenging, and have a lot of breakthroughs, and which it did. And it did have a lot of its own challenges. Like it was like, it went from like that excitement of like, I'm doing this bike trip with my best buddy to like, turns out he's super annoying and like grumpy with me. And we're like totally tired of each other, and it's like day 5. But then the fact that we pushed through it and we did the whole thing together through all the highs and lows was really good. And also I think what helped me for my other future things, that other bike trips I did after that, was the fact that Peter is a very independent individual. He's his own being, and seeing his family, that's how his whole family works. So I would say I was maybe more of the clingy one, and I wanted to bike beside him, or I'd ask him for like, what should we get for dinner tonight, or like I'd always be going to him as support. And as a friend, maybe he knew, or maybe it was just that he was tired of me, he'd kind of keep it at a distance. And I would find out having to be like figuring out these things on my own more for the first time, or we'd be biking for hours of the day and I'd just be by myself and we wouldn't be able to see each other. And so it was that feeling of being alone for the first time. And that was like hard for sure. Like I definitely like felt pushed by that, but then by the end of it, knowing that I had done it, knowing that I had been able to go through it at the age, I think I was 16 at the time, was then like, cool, I can do this again. I can do this again without Peter in the picture, because I know I can handle it. So I think that trip allowed me to see that I could take care of myself and survive on my own. So that allowed me to do more bike trips by myself, which were great. Yeah.
So it's funny, like I have no idea what route you took, but in my mind I'm like, I just see a bunch of big hills and then like really beautiful scenery, and like I'm kind of like mentally pedaling with you. Which really awesome.
Yeah.
And one of the images too that really jumped to mind when you were talking, and that feeling of being alone, where you're on a trip with someone, you can't see someone ahead of you or behind you, and you're just in that space. And I feel that really relates to how I'm feeling about the pandemic right now, and being like, you're with people, but they're either so like you can't see them, they're far behind, you can't hug them, and there is a feeling of loneliness in that, and there's a feeling of separation, even though there is a togetherness in that too. And I'm just wondering, what have been, I might just take a moment to sit with that for a second, because it turned a different thought, and then another one came in, and I'm like, which one do I want to ask? Okay, I'm going to listen to this one. It popped in. How have you also embraced that feeling of being alone and of introversion in those moments as well?
Yeah, it's funny because when I think about it, I'm not used to being alone still. Like that trip and other travels have been like my most alone moments in life, and I still struggle with it. I still struggled with it with trips after that, even though I knew I was by myself and there was no one I could go to. It was so I don't know if I do know how to embrace it yet. I think there's moments for sure that I really like it, that it's quiet and peaceful and calm, and any choice you make is your own, and you're just thinking for yourself. But most of the time when I reach a limit where I'm like, I need some peeps around again. When we moved into this,
we're good.
Yeah. Like I moved into this cabin that we're house sitting in for the winter a month ago, and I was just up here for about 2 weeks by myself. And by the end of it, like 2 weeks is maybe roughly the time of a quarantine, so that was like my own little practice quarantine. And I was just totally like, I need some people around, I need interaction. And I just found myself reaching out to people over the phone more. I just would talk to whoever I could that was available and wanted to chat, and that felt great. So I think, if alone works for you, then this is perfect timing. This is paradise. But for a lot of us that need more of that balance, don't hesitate to reach out. It's probably going to make you feel better. Like, just the resources are there. We have phone calls, we have these FaceTime, Zoom things. Like, I'm still learning how to use them as a resource, but they totally are always there. And so are the people on the other end, right? Like, we're all in this together. So chances are good that they'll be chilling out at their house as well. So yeah.
I think too, like, it's such a really beautiful space to recognize, like, there's also so many ways to reach out. It could be like, I don't have, some days for myself, honestly, it's like, I don't have the capacity to have a phone call or to have a Zoom chat, but it's like, I can send this really awesome gift that I found of like dancing dogs and whatever. And I'm like, that's my way of being like, I love you, I see you, but this is where I'm at, and just those touch points, and just kind of keeping that space and keeping that thread. And one of the really beautiful things that has happened out of this pandemic for me is a really good buddy of mine. We actually do this like weekly soup exchange or like meal exchange. And so I'm always making a big pot of soup, especially in the winter. And I'll be like, hey, I've got like, it could be like a pumpkin squash, curry tonight or whatever it is. And then we'll just exchange them. And it's just nice to be like, it's a drop off. It's a safe thing. I'm making food anyways. Because, honestly, I really miss, sharing meals with people and having people in, and I'm like, well, how can I do that in a way that's, again, respectful of other people right now, being mindful of time, and because there's something, I think for me personally is just sharing that taste with someone, even though there could be enjoying the bowl like blocks from you, you're like, we're enjoying the same, like, you know, they just, it's so exciting. And another fun way too is that another really dear friend of mine lives up in Trail in BC, and I have this craving, like they're so good. They're these jalapeno like crisps. And they're like amazing on like soups, tacos, burgers, like whatever. They're just like these really delicate, yummy, spicy as all heck food. And my friend the other day, I was raving about this in the summertime to her actually, and I was like, seriously, so good. And she was like, oh, that sounds amazing. And so she tried to go buy some at the grocery store up there, and like it was a different brand or whatever. And she's like, oh man, like they weren't any good. Like, and I was so disappointed because they were so good to me. It's like when you show someone a YouTube clip and you're just kind of like, that wasn't funny. And you're like, but it's so good, you know? And so I was like, I've got to get her these chips. Like I've got to get her them. And so I literally stuffed them in a Ziploc bag and sent them in the mail because I'm like, you just have to have them. Like you can't get them, but you have to get them. And yeah, and she just got them like literally yesterday. And she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, I know. Like, so those way too, it's like, how do you, right? And it was so funny. I literally wrote on the bag because it kind of looks like weed, to be honest. It's just like these green little things. And I literally wrote, I was like, P.S. this isn't weed. It's spicy jalapeno chips. And she laughed. She's like, I literally thought you sent me a huge bag of weed. And I was like,
of course.
Yeah, but it was really funny.
Yeah. I wonder if like Canada Post thought the same as well. Like,
right. But then they just had some like, you know, just, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
That's a great idea though. I love that, like sharing the flavor. So it's a great idea. Yeah. My sister just came up with the idea too of like sharing baking challenges. Because she's really into like the Great British Bake Off and like, all these baking shows on Netflix. And so is my girlfriend Millie. They both love baking. And I don't know anything about baking. So they thought, yeah, but I love it. I totally love it. But I just don't know how to do it. So they thought it would be fun to like all send each other baking challenges. So you like get either you get like your instructions or something, or they tell you over the phone, over Zoom, and you don't really know what you're baking the entire time until it comes out of the oven. And so, yeah, I was just like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, however we can connect like with food or whatever it is to just like get that bridge between people. Because like you said, sometimes it's totally hard just to like get the energy to make a phone call, and to have it just be like a chat can feel like daunting or whatever.
Really? Yeah.
So to have some like other like focus on the conversation, or just like something fun, lighthearted, food, whatever it is, like that is a good technique. I feel like good skill. Yeah. I dig it.
Yeah. I remember another really beautiful thing that this happened probably at the turn of the season, like kind of like summer into where we are now, which happened really quickly. And a friend actually had made a playlist, and it had all the words rain in it, I believe. And it's just like, but they were really like fun, like upbeat songs, or some of them were really just like melancholy. But I really appreciated that because she just shared it on Facebook online, and it was a way to connect and be like, you know, this person intentionally built this. And as I listened to it, I'm also like thinking of like, yeah, like they put time into this and thought, and like they collected all these songs, and it was another way to connect with, again, with not necessarily like synchronistic or direct ways, but kind of that thing where it's like, I got to be with this person for hours, because every time a new song came on, I was like, aw, like, you know, it was just a neat thing.
You don't really feel on the spot. Like, you know, it's not like, here's the song, listen to it and watch your reaction. It's just like, listen to it at your own time. Be in a safe place the entire time. Another great thing that my sister and girlfriend are also doing on their own thing is they're sending each other little letters and like care packages with like postcards and little candies or goodies. And I really think like that's a great pastime that should come back in this time as well. One thing my sister said on the phone that I thought was funny, she was like, whenever she sends like a postcard or a letter to someone, and then sometimes they'll text her back and be like, hey, thanks for the letter. She's like, really? Like, you're texting me back? Like, you've missed the entire point. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I like seeing that happen. Like, I like when it's just like at your own time, you know, you can write them back whenever you feel like it, and it always takes a few other days or weeks to get to them. So you know, there's not this like urgency there. It's very nice.
It's another way of taking that breath, right? It's another way of being like, I want to reach out, but I also want to surprise this person. I want to do it in this time. And it's like getting mail is such a juicy feeling. Very exciting. Yeah. A fun mail tip. Well, there's two that I like to share. One is that sending tea bags, like in because they're really flat, right? I always just like paperclip one to like the tea, like the postcard, and then I'll like send it because I'm like, it's gotta be good. Like, it's still, so I'm like, you get a cup of tea at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. And you can like curate it as well. You make it like
that's the kind of thing I'm like, you're getting like different senses, you know, like I'm like, yes, it's an experience, like enjoy this moment whenever you feel like it, you know. And then another friend told me once that because I am someone who I'm like, if someone asks me like, oh, like, do you want something? I'm going downtown. I'm like, can you pick me up some stamps? Like, I'm that kind of person. I'm like, I ran out of stamps. But most people don't have them kicking around, right? And so my friend was like, a really great way to continue that conversation is you send like a blank card with a stamp already addressed to it. So you send two, you send yours, then you send a pre-stamped one. Because there's that delay, right? They're like, oh, I don't have a stamp. When am I going to get a stamp? You know, how am I going to just get one stamp? Like, it just becomes this thing. But if you send it to them, and they can be like, send it to anyone you want, or send it back, whatever.
That's great. Oh, nice.
Smart little, like, support, too, right?
Yeah, I really like that. It's funny. It's on the same kind of like mailing tips, which I didn't realize there was so many of. But
to mailing tips with Tao and Taryn.
Yeah, we have found our rhythm for the conversation. So I don't know if Canada Post has caught up with this yet, but I think like someone back in our family lineage, it was like, you know, like my great aunt used to do this or whatever it was. But what she did was, what she would do is send the letter without a stamp on it at all, but it would still get to the person she wanted to send it to, because what she would do is she would write their address as the return address, and then she'd write her address as the send to. So then they'd just be like, oh, no post, better send it back to that person. And then
I am like getting excited about how mischievous this is. Like,
like, don't spread this too much out there.
Okay, we're just gonna like mute that out and just go.
Great
aunt! Yay!
Totally.
Okay, so if you don't have stamps,
there you go.
You didn't hear it here, but you heard it somehow.
Yeah, that's right. I like to give credit where it's due, but I don't know where.
It glitched out. Internet. It just does that, you know. Yeah. Ooh, this is I love. I'm just. It's such a good feeling to feel so connected. Yet we are miles apart right now. Yeah. And, you know, it's really nice to connect over things that people are doing to take, you know, care of one another. People are doing to, you know, add some extra like joy and humor. You know, for me, I think humor has been such an important piece to this, where I've just been watching like comedies. Like, I actually make it a practice. I'm like, if I can watch a comedy a day, like, you know, it's a pretty solid way to spend time. Especially in the midst of work and studies and so many things where there's urgency in that, the false urgency, I think, too. And the way I kind of see taking breaks in that way is like, you know, I'm disrupting the pattern that things have to get done now. And if they don't get done now, they'll never get done. And, you know, I don't believe in that, yet the body sometimes really thinks it's real. And you're like, just kidding, watch me laugh for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I'll come, you know, or maybe I won't come back. Maybe it'll be tomorrow when I just feel like the energy's there to do whatever, right?
I think that connects quite closely to that workshop that you ran last winter, I guess it was, or last spring,
Yeah.
just like those like 5 steps to like working on a project. And yeah, definitely like taking rest and taking breaks was like a key takeaway for me through that. And there's been one tip that is like, I would say is kind of like changed my life. And yeah, and it was a really awesome one that's like been really helpful. And that was just like when to leave a social gathering, which in all fairness, we don't really do anymore, but unfortunately, but when we were, and when yeah, and it's not even like social gatherings, it's like just interactions maybe. Is like leaving on a high note, like leaving early, like that's okay. You don't have to be there the whole time. So I really like found that helpful for personal care. It was like, this has been really awesome hanging out with all of you. And I'm sure it'll be awesome later into the night, but I'm gonna leave now because I feel good. Rather than like getting to that point, you're like, oh, I can't get off this couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And that has been like a super helpful change. Like, yeah, taking rest.
Awesome. Thank you for reminding me of that and for bringing that back. And I'm sure we can share a link somewhere of those other videos too. But yeah, I remember, I think actually that started once when I realized the importance of that was, I think it was at a karaoke thing at Cornerstones, a local restaurant and gathering spot in town. Shout out to Robin and Step, who run the karaoke, and so many other wonderful things. Is that, yeah, I remember being like, I was just like such in a groove, and it was so great seeing so many people. This was, mind you, years ago at this point. But I was like, yeah, this is such a good feeling. Like, I want to take this with me. And I was like, what a great way to leave, feeling so filled by this energy, you know, and this just connection where I'm like, because yeah, notoriously gatherings, you're like, oh, there's this weird social script of like, you know, stick to the end, you know, stick it out, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm not going to be feeling super hot if I keep going. Like, I'm tired. I go to bed at like 8:30. Like, I am classic, like grandma child over here. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I get to take that feeling with me right now. And I get to like walk down the street being like, I love my friends, like, you know, and jump on the bus and come home. And yeah, so I think too, it just honors that experience a little bit more too, within yourself and within the people that are there, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's super important for sure. Do you mind if I quickly grab some headphones and put some on? Would that be okay?
Go for it.
Go better? Yeah, okay, I'll be back.
Great. I'm gonna go fill my tea.
Okay, that'll be better.
Awesome. I just refilled my tea, so it was good. Perfect. Yeah. Speaking of leaving on a high note, I just want to check in, see how your energy's at. We can, you know, wrap this space up soon. You can share a bit more. I've probably got about 10-ish more minutes in me myself. Yeah, so I'm just mindful of, yeah, how does that sound for you?
That sounds perfect. 10 more minutes sounds great. And then I can go help with dinner and cool. We can wrap things up. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. And it sounds good, literally?
Yeah, totally, literally sounds great.
Oh, super, super, super. Yeah, let's see. Wow, I love how this just like has been in so many different ways and it's just coming just through. Is there anything that you want to share or talk about around leadership, engagement, just anything that you're finding inspired by right now to speak into? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's not really an answer. I guess I'm just curious of how the rest of the leadership summit was with everyone else involved.
Totally.
Yeah, I saw some photos, but I'm not sure like what it looked like in the end or who was there, how it felt, but I bet it was cool.
Yeah, so this will be a hilarious meta moment in being like, this is how this went, and you're watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happened for the back end is that we recognized as soon as the pandemic hit, 9 days before the live summit, that we had to really understand what pivoting meant. And yeah, so coming through about almost a month ago to this day, actually, we decided that we wanted to have them recorded. And so we hired a really lovely youth. Do you actually, Mackay Sharp? Do you know from the?
Did you do the Comox Art Gallery
Yes.
media thing? Okay. Yeah, I don't think I was in his gear, but I might have bumped into him.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Super rad person. Just like gem of a human.
Sweet. Cool.
Yeah, and so Mackay, we hired Mackay, and then there was also a graphic facilitator, so Jill Banting, who essentially would be visually describing the conversations as they were happening and the talks, and it was really great because we time scheduled them, so each person would come in a different time. Each person was so uniquely themselves in the way that they presented, right? We made sure that if they wanted to stand, they stood, if they wanted to sit, if they wanted to read, if they wanted to just kind of have more of this. Connor did like an improv space as well, and so that was captured there. Josie also performed. Chai has moved out of the valley as well and will also be sending in a performance, and so we really just wanted to honor like where are people at in their lives, how do we make this not an additional commitment but something that can really just support that seamless process of we all have a lot going on, we're all just tired. There's a baseline that's just like, okay, this is where we're at, that's there. And so we really wanted to make sure that it was really like, that it was high quality, but that it was low stakes, right? That we made people feel comfortable in those spaces. And yeah, it was really fun. It was really great. Jesse Everson did an Indigenous welcome as well. So that was really important to the work. And yeah, it was really great to have this all pieced together and to share that for sure. So yeah, it's been something that, when Liv and I first started, we're like, awesome, like we can plan this in 3 months. Awesome, cool, like December to March. Cool, right? And then we're like December to almost December, like and it's just one of those things as organizers and producers that you just have to keep adjusting and keep taking care, right? Like we took a good break to figure out, not even to figure out, we just took a break. We didn't figure anything. We just paused, and, so that was awesome until we felt the capacity to come and return back to the space. So
yeah, well, I really appreciate it. I admire it, and your whole team and everyone that's been pulling this off. Like, it's felt really good as a participant and a student, and just like part of the process has been really nice. Seeing how adaptable you guys are and really aware of where everyone's at. Because totally like. The whole like the energy that we had to put into it back last December was like up here, and the energy that we had to put into it now is like down here. And so the fact that we can still create something out of that and continue creating this is super cool. So yeah, it's felt really good for me to like have this conversation being like super chill and relaxed, just like buddy to buddy, and just like super low stakes, like you said. Like this can't go wrong because it's already been a success, just like chatting and catching up and talking about sending tea bags in the mail. That's great.
You're just sending
yeah, totally.
And I think, one of the biggest lessons that I think both Liv and I really took from this process is, we have this grand idea and this vision, and it's changed so many times, even since before it was going to be in the stage version, in the auditorium and looking at that as an audience. But one of the things that keeps coming back to me, especially as people who have ideas, who love creating, who love community, who really like to share in those spaces, is something that I'm really mindful of now. And always have to remind myself, who's like someone who can just think really big, really fast, really quickly, where I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, if you took that idea, Taryn, and you cut it in half, and then you cut it in half again, this is still just as valuable as this.
Yeah.
This
Awesome.
is way more manageable, and it's way more responsive to your own care, and it's way more, transparent around, actually, I need less right now. And I think that, any artist, anyone working in any way, really, to understand that our impact is still just as great when we scale down, when we take care, when we put ourselves in a space that can be like, I can actually not touch this for a couple days and it's still going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because I built that into the schedule. I built that into the company, and whatever that looks like for folks too is that. So yeah, I have a note on my wall where it's like, cut it in half and half again. And I just like I'm setting something or excited about something or something else comes up. I'm like, cut it in half and half again. Cut it in half and half again. And it's still, because the creative vision can take you so many places, and it always will. Like you said earlier, like there are things that come through that we could never plan, right? No. And there is going to be things that continue to share opportunities and share different things that I could have never written down on paper. Like I could have never been like, this is how this will happen. I don't know. It'll be someone sending you something or a friend being like, hey, do you want to talk about this? And all of a sudden, and I think just that space to really understand too that in your dreaming and in your visioning and in your planning, to have space for things to come through. Yep. That you don't have to know what that next week, month, 3 months, 6 months, years look like, is that you intentionally leave it blank for something to come up.
Yep, and fill that space. Totally. Yeah, it's something my dad has tried to like drive home for me as well, is that like being in a place where there doesn't feel like there's a plan or something happening is actually okay, because that allows for something to come through the door, like just an opportunity. And yeah, I'd hopefully, not be speaking for everyone, but I feel like that's the case for most of us, is in a time where we feel maybe less focused or less goal oriented, is generally a time where something comes in that's like, yeah, okay, there it is. And had I not been open and willing to receive, I would have missed it. So yeah, that's definitely been one of the benefits of like taking time off school, I think, is just being able to say yes to almost any opportunity that comes up. So don't feel like free time is wasted time. Free is good.
And it also doesn't need to be filled.
No, it doesn't.
Like free time doesn't like, oh, I've got that part of my day. I'm like, I have that part of my day off because I've chosen it. Like,
yeah.
Off,
Totally.
One of the things that I also actually came through, probably in the past couple months, I would say, is that I had this like wall calendar up, and for about 3 months, it was really, really helpful. I really liked building that schedule and routine and just sort of marking things that happened in my day and just seeing things on sort of an open scale. And about a month ago now, it was just getting too much for me. Like I was getting overwhelmed. I was the busiest I've ever been, with just multiple projects and work. And I actually took my calendar off my wall and put it in a drawer. And I was like, you know what? You know what you need to do. It will get done. You don't need to look a week ahead. You don't need to look 2 weeks ahead. You know that you'll get it done by the end of the week or the end of whenever it needs to. Like you don't need to stress yourself out by just staring at what you have to do. And I just haven't put it back up. And I love it. And I'm like, I have a calendar in my phone, which I use and it's great, but just to have a space that doesn't always remind you that something is to happen or something is due. I think it's really shifted. And I am someone who I like buying planners for fun, I'm like, it's off my calendar down. This is great. But it does, it just changed that concept of urgency. It changed that. I'm like, I'm still, having goals and doing that, but it doesn't have to look or feel a certain way.
No.
And I think
and it doesn't always have to be in your face. Like it's good to take time from it, and because anytime you walk past it, it can be a good reminder, and it can be a bad reminder sometimes. So yeah, allowing yourself space from it is super important. And yeah, I'm glad that you took it down, and switching it up because you might put it back up. Who knows?
Totally. I'm like, I think it's one thing too, where it's like, you can decide something can happen in that moment, but then you can also be like, actually, I like it back up, or I don't. And nothing has to stay, solid. And like you said, you're like, this is currently how I'm thinking about it, but it might change. It might have changed already.
Yeah.
And just being like, I don't have to tie myself to that identity of that idea. Right.
Really important.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Feels good. I just think like, it's funny what I think like attach ourselves to and what like makes changes in our lives. And like for you, it's a wall calendar and like taking it down. And like that was a big change. And it's funny. It's just like, what are these things like hidden behind the closet that we don't realize are actually like affecting our mental health and like maybe dragging us down or maybe lifting us up and we don't realize and we need to pay more attention to them. It's hard to say, but it's good when you have those like moments of like, aha, that felt good. Glad I made that change. Yeah, it's super rad. Nice.
I think on that note as well, I'm mindful that dinner is brewing for you, and I am excited that you get to nourish and eat.
Me too.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this space. It has been something that I was looking forward to all day, and I was also nervous. I was like, what? Like nervous, excited, like I just knew that it was going to be exactly what it was. Exactly how it was supposed to come through. So I really just appreciate the time and the commitment that you have to showing up as you are, and offering that space for other people to listen in and to feel connected by as well. So thank you, Tao, so much. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thank you as well, Taryn. You've been really supportive and very positive through this whole journey and wacky ride of a year that since we first started talking. And I've just been really glad that you and I have come closer through it too. And I'm glad our relationship has developed through this. And I look forward to just like catching up and not having to worry about it being recorded or asking questions or whatever, and just being like, maybe I'll send you some.
Yeah.
I will, yeah.
Yeah.
Text me your address and I'll send you some like secret tea mail. Yeah. That'd be awesome. So yeah, really good talking today. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Taryn.
Thank you, my friends.
Catch up again soon.
Okay, bye, Tao.
Bye, Taryn. See ya.